Are you ready for a challenge, and that too for a good cause? Then look no further. Join the Mental Health Foundation Australia as we walk for mental health across the country on the 16th of October at 10:30am in each state and territory capital. Worried about COVID? Well, we've got you covered. We've launched our MHFA app where you can walk virtually, raising funds as an individual or in a team. Visit our website for more information about getting started. So come on Australia, our journey to better mental health starts with one step.
Where would I read it?
Tell you later.
It's just the banner is really annoying.
No, I didn't read it.
We dress ourselves. We should get someone who dresses.
I can't dress myself. My wife has to do up my buttons and shoelaces. It's hard to master shoelaces.
Can be a tricky business.
I remember teaching my friend Gordon Hughes how to do up his shoelaces when he was 8.
Yeah.
True.
Alright, so in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we're going to start.
Was that a start? Go. Welcome to the 4th episode, everyone, of The Goody Show, brought to you by the Mental Health Foundation of Australia. My name is Jim Goodin, and we hope our show is able to provide some education about mental health issues in a light-hearted and entertaining vein. Today we're going to be talking about obsessive compulsive disorder, which is one of the most interesting psychiatric conditions in the mental health, set of conditions that we will be discussing. It takes many forms, and it can be one of the most disabling and debilitating of all the mental illnesses. Often bipolar and schizophrenia get a lot more attention, but I think you'll find today from our speaker and a discussion of this condition just how time-consuming it can be. Generally speaking, sufferers have compulsions to perform actions or rituals which seem momentarily to relieve the symptoms. This may include cleaning, washing, counting, or rituals involving symmetry. These rituals can be completely monopolising of a person's day and be highly destructive to relationships. Other sufferers are more consumed by obtrusive, obsessional thoughts that dominate their thinking, so much so that the sufferer feels under attack from their own mind. Today we have an expert and a consumer and facilitator employed by the Mental Health Foundation for our obsessive compulsive disorder support groups to discuss this particular condition. Welcome, Jim Beer, facilitator extraordinaire.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege to be here.
And it's lovely to have you. And who are you, by the way?
I'm Lucia Hou, fashionista and attaché to the Mental Health Foundation Australia. Welcome everybody. I would like to start off by thanking my designer and also my jewellery pieces by Andrea Augusta, my beautiful designer who is also here in the audience, Lucy Loretta. And she's
Lucy Loretta. Now, that's a name I've heard before.
She's also a Mental Health Foundation Australia.
She is, and she's a wonderful lady.
Yes, not only is she a beautiful designer, she's also author to this little book of little imperfections, which is really great gift cards and posters that you can actually see on her website. But today she's dressed me up in this beautiful outfit, and mind you, in today's news, you can also see a big article about her design. She recently designed an outfit, a very beautiful sequence outfit for the Prime Minister's partner, Jodie Hayden.
Good heavens, how wonderful. Yeah, that's really
absolutely
great.
And my makeup and hair, look at the fresh roses.
I love the flowers on the side of your hair,
by
that's
Marta,
lovely.
who's also in the audience. who is by Liliette Hair Beauty and Body. And yes, I actually feel like a pinata today with all the beautiful shimmer. Can you see?
Look, I understand your analogy, but I don't think so. I could never describe your radiant beauty today and the way that you've been coiffured and dressed in that sense. You look delightful as ever, and wonderful of these people to present you in such a way.
Yes.
And we recommend them, don't we, as our sponsors?
Absolutely. If you're out there looking for a beautiful piece, go onto Lucy Larita's website. She not only does beautiful and artists, singers, and really famous people on stage, but she dresses everybody, as you can see, myself, for the
Magnificent. Now listen, I have a confession that I have to tell you, and I don't want you to tell my wife, please, all right? But it's by way of, it's just a joke, okay? Because it starts off, my girlfriend left me because she couldn't handle my OCD.
What did you do?
Well, I told her to close the door 5 times on her way out.
I like that one.
Yeah.
It was a compulsion. Five times, not once, not twice, not 3, 4, 5 times on your way out.
I have a good one too.
What's yours?
How does people with OCD like their drinks?
Can I tell you the answer to that? Neat.
Neat.
Neat. It's got to be clean and neat, right?
Right.
Right.
Is that right, Jim Beer? Is that why your surname is Beer? Because you like your beers to be neat?
You guys and your comedy, I tell you.
I think he's awestruck at our wit. I think he really is. Jim, can I throw my first question at you about obsessive compulsive disorder? And this is a very serious topic, of course. What are some of the most common compulsions and obsessions that people with obsessive compulsive disorder suffer from?
Look, some of the most common ones, I think the classic ones that people hear about is contamination and the hand washing and checking. But what I do want to make clear is, sometimes there's this illusion of, they're very clean people. It goes well beyond the logic. When we talk about things like contamination and checking, most people actually know at a logical level things are clean, have been checked. But there's a strong pull, that's what OCD is.
A pull.
A pull, almost like a pull, I have to check. They're two of the common ones that happen. Of course, there's also things like intrusive thoughts. Some people are just having constant intrusive thoughts about something negative or sexuality or whatever it may be that they don't want. And like anything else, Jim, and you guys will understand, the more you don't want to think of something, the more you think of it. And
don't think of an elephant in a pink tutu.
Exactly.
Straight away your mind goes to it.
That's what you're going to think of. And you're fighting very hard not to think of it. They're just the classic ones, but have no illusion about it. This one about contamination, which is a popular one, a lot of people think it's about, they're very clean and they're very neat. It is tormenting. It is not just about being neat and clean. When it's at an OCD level, a diagnostic level, it is a tormenting drive to have it that way. Not just I'm neat and, sometimes we use the term, I'm a bit OCD. Doesn't quite
cut
capture
it. Doesn't quite capture
exactly.
it.
And they're just common ones. It can be, for me, I have OCD, and to be totally honest, I could eat off the floor.
That's interesting.
So, it presents in a lot of various ways. So I've just mentioned a couple of the common ones, but it's a lot more than that. A lot more.
Counting, symmetry.
Having to have things in certain order, of course. And again, there's a sense of discomfort. If it isn't fixed, it's anxiety driving it. If it isn't fixed, I have to fix it.
What would you say are the most distressing symptoms of obsessive compulsive disorder, if I can say the most distressing? In your experience as a consumer, as a facilitator of the support group, what do people in the support group complain about most? Is it a symptom or is it...
No, I'll tell you, I think, and I'm being honest here, there's a lot of symptoms, we go through a lot of symptoms, but what I find underlying everything, what makes it particularly hard is is the judgment of people and the lack of understanding, because this individual does not know what's
Right.
happening to them.
Yep.
And I often say this to the kids I work with: if you're in a wheelchair, everyone will give you empathy.
Yep.
Everyone will see what's happening. It's obvious. Mental health, for the most part, is hidden. So when you're doing rituals in your head, people say, "What do you want to do this? Why don't you do that?" When you're lying in bed, with rituals or whatever it may be in your head, when you're obsessing, "Oh, why don't you do this one?" Because they can't see it, and the sufferer can't actually say it. And therein lies a huge problem, because there is no validation, there is no empathy and compassion. What there is whereas you'd say to someone in a wheelchair, "I'll give you a hand," to the person with OCD and mental health, you say you're lazy. You should be doing this, and if I were you, I'd be doing that.
But they're completely distracted by their
Yeah.
OCD.
Yeah, but it's a real illness, but as I say, it's just invisible. And this I find across the board. And what happens, and I'll talk maybe a little bit about this later, is society doesn't understand it, even some professionals don't understand it, and will judge you, but then the actual person suffering it will start doing the judging as well. So nowhere along the way, even by the person suffering, is there any real validation. This is a real thing.
So that lowers your self-esteem.
Lowers
It's sort of a
self-esteem.
cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, and there builds a lot of self-hatred. Now you've got a whole lot of symptoms of OCD, and you've got this heavy critic bearing down on
internal
you
critic.
Internal critic, bearing down on you constantly. And it's sort of across the board with mental health, because again, as I say, because there's not enough understanding and it's invisible. And I'll go further on to say this, and I feel quite strongly about this. Sometimes the things we say to people with OCD and mental health, it would be the equivalent of saying to someone in a wheelchair, "You should be walking." But someone would think you're an idiot if you did that. But when it comes to mental health, it's constantly happening. And that, I think, becomes double. So the symptoms are one thing, and that doubles it.
Apart from that, what are some of the daily challenges for people who suffer OCD?
Daily challenges, look, I know of people who simply can't cook at home,
Okay.
because they're so afraid of contamination that the rituals will take them hours to do. So even cooking at home is hard. Having a shower and looking after yourself, because for some people, and for me when I was younger, and even now to some extent, once I get in the shower, rituals are happening. And if my ritual, especially when I was younger, are going to take me 2 hours, I won't bother with the shower. So it's sort of a little indirect and a bit hidden again, but someone might say, "I desperately wanted to have a shower." Someone might think you don't want to have a shower, but I desperately want to have a shower. But if I get in there, I'll be in there for 3 hours. And the other problem with this is, remember, who can I tell that to?
Yes. Who would understand?
Who would understand? I can barely understand it myself, let alone someone else. So it's...
I guess this is what I meant when I said it's the most perplexing mental condition, because it is so foreign, it's so alien to most people's understanding.
There's no logic in it. And what people make the mistake of, in things like contamination, there's a little bit element of logic. They go, "Oh, well, who don't want to be clean? These people are really clean," but have no.
But not 24 hours a day.
No, have no qualms about it. It may have an initial element of logic, but that is lost.
Yep. In your experience, what's the usual age of onset? That's a double banger question here. Usual age of onset, and do you think it's triggered by life events, or are people born with OCD?
Well, look, for me, it started about the age of 11. For a lot.
So you're young.
Yeah, so I was young. So it varies, but usually teenage years, late teenage years, there's some variation.
Children?
Usually even children can have it, which is really surprising and sad. You go, my goodness, but there are elements in there. But at the other side of it also, even adults can get it sometimes. I've heard of cases where under heavy stress, it comes out. That doesn't mean it's, the disposition is there. It's probably 80% genetic, the genetic element to it. And as we're talking about, certain brain scans will actually find that the brain is different for people with OCD. But having said that, and I think this has been a really important one for me, is let's say you're born with a bad leg. If your environment, if someone's kicking it every day, that leg is going to fall off. So I have no doubt whatsoever about the environmental element of where this goes. I have worked in mental health in Altona, and I've worked in mental health in Hawthorne. And there's a striking difference. By education, social class, knowledge, family support, is a huge difference. So as much as it's maybe predominantly a genetic illness, I really sometimes get a bit frustrated, because where that goes is heavily dependent on the environment. And it is a fluctuating illness. At different times it will do that. And this is what makes it again hard.
And is it a lifetime illness?
Look, it is generally a chronic illness. It is generally, I think that maybe 1% or a small percentage will recover and it'll go away, but for most, it is a chronic mental illness, which makes it quite different. Not quite different, but it makes it, you know, a lot of people will have bouts or episodic illnesses and it may just come and go. And you go, oh, I did this and I got out of it. But for a chronic illness, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more complicated.
Jim, can I touch back on your personal experience with OCD? You said that you had it at a very young age. When were you diagnosed and what form does it take in your case?
Okay, now I developed OCD around probably the age of 11, 12. But like most people with mental health problems, you don't know what's going on. It's hidden. A whole lot of things happening in the family. You yourself don't know. So I didn't actually get diagnosed till my early to mid 20s.
Okay, that's a while.
Yeah. So you've got this thing going on that's impacting your life, impacting your relationships, your family, your sense of self, and it's going completely hidden under the surface and undiagnosed. It was until I was 24 when things got really. It was to a crisis point where I literally could not leave my room for hours.
Because of the rituals you're
because of the
performing.
rituals. Yeah.
Were there any triggers?
There weren't any particular triggers at that time. It was just a build-up of triggers, of family stuff, of not knowing, and time. There were a lot of life things happening, family stuff going on. Some family stuff going on for me, which started at an early age, but we're all trying to pretend and hide, and you know how it goes with this stuff. And what's really important is that, again, OCD had become so debilitating. It's a funny thing, I'm just going to quickly say this. Everyone thinks they're choosing their interaction, reaction in life. If your mind isn't running well, it doesn't matter whether you've got legs and arms. It doesn't matter. A lot of people think we're doing things because we're choosing to do this, and you've got arms, you've got legs, why don't you do this, why don't you do that? I assure you, it is irrelevant.
Yes.
If this is not working, be it depression, OCD, or whatever it is, the rest is irrelevant.
True.
And it's a big misconception.
So what are some of the treatments currently used for OCD, both psychological and medication? And what sort of treatments have you used and are you using to control your condition?
Look, medication is a big aspect for OCD, you know. To put in the context, you know, look, certain illnesses will require 80% of it will be medication. For some, like psychological disorders, trauma, will maybe 10 or 20%. For OCD, I find it's usually 50% of your recovery in that symptomatic sense is going to be medication. Medication plays a big part.
Big part, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The other thing that is often used is cognitive behavior therapy. It's about changing your thinking patterns. Your thinking impacts your behavior, and the essence of it is that there's some faulty or misconception, false thinking that's going on. That we need to rethink this, and that will impact your behavior. So cognitive behavior therapy. The other one is also what they call ERP, exposure and response prevention, which is a really important one. It actually even works for phobias in that sense.
But a bit painful, I believe.
Yes. And it's a bit like telling someone to stand there and the truck's going to stop an inch away from your nose, but it's coming at you. And that's nice and all that the psychologists and the psychiatrists know it's going to stop an inch from your nose, but you're standing in front of it. You're still having to experience. And what the idea is that I expose myself to whatever the trigger may be. Let's say it's contamination. I put my hand in a bit of dirt. And OCD generally works the obsession. Okay, it's contamination, oh my goodness, and the compulsion is to then wash it or do a ritual or wash it 10 times or 50 times. Now what they're asking you to do is to expose yourself
and not respond.
Okay, so expose yourself to the truck coming at you. Don't worry, it's not going to hit you, but you're the one standing there. Okay, and don't run, don't move, it'll stop an inch from your nose.
But the irrational threat of the dirty hands is equivalent to a truck driving up to you, in terms of a threat to your welfare.
In terms of, and this is a very, often even with PTSD, often we think you need to go to war. It's how you experience it. It's how you experience it. And this is one of the hidden things of the mind, that unless you've worked in the field, and I mean worked in the field for a while, or have a lived experience, you don't quite... It's not as simple as that.
But it's different for everyone, right?
A lot of variation. As I said, my partner, who I love, by the way, I have to sneak
And
that in.
congratulations
Thank
on getting
you.
married,
Thank you. She's beautiful.
That's an impending marriage, we might add, for the audience.
Yet? am I?
No, let's go ahead. No, let's have a bit of distraction, especially when it's joyous.
And she's a very beautiful woman. I'm so glad nothing worked out for me before. I'm glad it took this long to meet the perfect person. She's beautiful.
Wonderful, wonderful.
What were we talking about again before we go?
I think it was Lucia's turn.
Yes. So I have a question. What are some of the theories about causes of OCD? Some researchers believe it is coping and learned behaviour, but I believe there is a lot of evidence to suggest definite neurological causes and even inflammation caused by infection and fevers.
No, there is. I'm just going to go back one step, and forgive me for this. Okay, the reason I brought my girlfriend up was who also has OCD. Now, she's all fear of contamination. She can't leave anything alone. She'll watch a crumb fall to the floor. Me, I could eat off the floor. And I just want to make the point we both have OCD.
But it's different.
Yeah, mine is don't do it, don't do it, don't touch it, don't this. Hers is you have to do it, you have to do it. So the same forces in different directions. Sure. Okay, just want to put that out there.
Yeah, no, that's important.
Yeah. The fact is that hang on, where was it? Sorry, I lost that. Neurological stuff. Some of the theories about OCD, okay, look, there's theories simply this genetic disposition to OCD. You know, that some people are, whether you like or not, born with it. And that's something you have to be able to take on board. Neurological causes, isn't there something called PANDAS? There's that sometimes illness and certain other things can actually have a factor and bring on OCD when you're young. We were just talking earlier, Jim was saying that sometimes in children there's an onset of OCD or babies.
Even young,
babies,
toddlers.
And antibiotics clear up.
Yeah.
And there's new research coming out constantly.
That was a study in the United States. Barbara Swedo and Judith Rappaport. Right. And they introduced antibiotics to cure children with streptococcal infection that had developed OCD, which is remarkable. You know.
So there's a few different angles, and always we must remember with research that you put all things together. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Sure.
Being a bit of a mindful spiritual person, the mind loves to pick. It's one or the other. It's one or the other. It's one or the other. It can be an entwinement of things.
Because it's so complex.
It is complex, and generally in mental health, I found from my work where I work in Danong, that often mental health symptoms aren't just discrete. This is OCD and this is separate. They're not as separate as you think. They can be a lot of times more entwined than you think. And so someone with a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder will have elements of OCD, and there will be elements of this, there will be elements of that. And psychiatry is relatively new in the scheme of things. So it's a lot of cause, and obviously there is that biophysical elements, you know, in there. But as I said before, if you are born with a certain thing and your environment doesn't assist you or abuses it, your vulnerability...
Or keeps kicking the sore leg.
It's going to fall off. So it's very important for us as the environment to become more and more aware of these things.
Lucia, do you think the audience might have some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Can we have a...
Hi, Jim. I was just wondering, how does OCD impact your self, or sense of self, and self-esteem?
Look, I think these are some of the hidden questions, and I think they're very important questions, because it's one thing to have OCD, but when you can't get out of bed, when you can't go to the toilet because you're peeing in your pants, as I was, when you are doing rituals, when you haven't had a shower for weeks, why am I? Where did this come from? You know? So even the experience of having a mental illness in itself is traumatic. So your sense of self is quite obliterated, to be totally honest. And it's taken a long time for me to realise and be able to work with and realise a certain sense of self-compassion to counter this, because I find across the board there's a lot of self-hatred. So you haven't just got a mental illness, you've got a whole lot of self-hatred going on, and someone here going constantly, in every instant, telling you you're not worthy, you're not good enough. I wish someone had said to me, and I hope I'm not waffling, but Jim, you're actually a really nice person.
Jim, you're a really nice person.
Jim, you are a really nice person.
You have a mental illness that needs to be worked on. No one said that. And so your whole life you take this on as your identity. I'm unworthy, I'm not lovable, I'm inferior, I'm not good enough, I stink, I'm this, I'm that. It's all this identity. And so now what I tell the kids, you're beautiful kids, you're perfect.
Marnie, did you have a follow-up question?
Also, what has helped you to counter these feelings?
Because that must be terrible to live with those feelings.
Oh yeah, it can be tormenting. And you know, this self-hatred can go on and on and on if there's not a certain, what has helped me counter it? I thought one thing was therapy. A few years of therapy was really good. It was quite intellectual. What has really helped me counter it is doing mindfulness and spirituality. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to understand and fix things from your mind. A bit like with OCD, the problem is thinking, and I'm trying to solve it with more thinking. And if one can take on a bit of mindfulness and actually leave the mind alone, just observe it, let it go, come to your heart, over time you will feel a certain detachment. And you'll feel a certain compassion that everyone in this room and in the world, in every moment, in every instant, is actually doing the best they can with what they have. I might have known that once logically, but now I know it in my heart. And mindfulness and spirituality, for those who are open to it, in all its forms,
It's healing.
is very healing. And it's the most powerful force in the world.
So now, having said that, I think Ian's got a good follow-up question to that.
Hi, Jim. My question is, what is recovery in the broader sense of the term from a peer perspective?
Okay, now something at work, when the kids see the psychiatrist, that's clinical recovery. It's all about symptoms, okay? The recovery I talk about with the kids is how is your relationship with yourself and the world around you. Okay, and it's a bit like someone sitting in a wheelchair for the rest of their life going, why am I in a wheelchair? What's someone doing? I accept I carry my cross. And to me that, in a way, that sense of acceptance, deep acceptance, that sense of compassion, all of those things, that, yeah, I have OCD. And to me, again, what it's about to me is I want to be able to sit in peace with myself.
Yeah.
No judgment, and that is possible, believe it or not. It's only in my late 40s that I've actually been able to do. I haven't. God of the universe, God of the universe, Mother Nature has brought that forth, and you go, oh, I've actually just been doing the best I can. That's all anyone ever does. But the mind loves comparison and judgment. I really urge anyone who's listening and you guys to consider how life would be with no judgment.
And compassion.
Yeah.
Jim, you are a fantastic interviewee. Thank you so much. It's always a delight. And Jim is a dear friend of mine for many years. And thank you so much for coming onto this program and sharing all of that very personal information. And I'm sure that's been of great benefit to the community.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
And I'm absolutely grateful for the privilege.
And I'm going to turn over to the delightful Lucia, who's got some sponsorship statements to make.
But before that, from myself, I would like to invite any budding designers or artists out there, jewelry designers, anything that you would like to showcase, to contact us so that we can feature you on this show. And today's episode is proudly sponsored by Lucy Loretta, my designer that I'm wearing her outfit, and also Amit Miglani of M&Co Wealth. Thank you so much. If you would like to partner with the Mental Health Foundation Australia and all the good things that we do on the Goodies show, spreading a light on different topics of mental health and bringing a lighter conversation to it, please contact us and come on board.
Oh, you're delightful the way you do that. That's wonderful, Lucia. All right, well, I think that's about all we have. I've just got one final irrelevant comment to make, as I do at the end of every program, because that's me, after all, to say things that are pretty irrelevant. I just want to make note, of course people are interested in my hat, and I got a new pin the other day. It's like Lake Boga. I don't know if people know where Lake Boga is, but it's in northern Victoria, and it was the World War II repair base for the Catalina flying boats, because it's almost perfectly round at 3 kilometres. So it didn't matter which way you approach, which from the perspective of the wind blowing, you could approach at any angle at any time, because of course it was perfectly round. It was a good target. And it was one of the most top secret military bases in Australia during the war. It's well worth a visit. It's well worth a visit to go and have a look at this interesting place and the museum that goes with it. So I guess the mental health message behind my irrelevance is to say, go out, get active. We have a very interesting world. We have a very interesting world. And Jim, you're part of it. Lucia, you're part of it. You're all part of it. Get out and enjoy it. Thank you so much for being part of today's presentation, and come back to this place, come back to this virtual place next month, and we'll have another exciting topic. In fact, we'll be talking about panic attacks, panic disorder.
Wow.
So that's an interesting one. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for watching.
That's a wrap!